Hi, welcome to my library and to this introduction to Dante. We'll just do a brief introduction and then we'll go into the first canto. That's the new name for the divisions. Canto, a song basically. Um, each the Divine Comedy, so called. Dante simply called it the Comedy. Others later called it the Divine Comedy. It's divided into three cantiche, the three major sections according to the three realms. The first one, uh, Inferno, about Inferno, hell. Uh, then Paradiso. No, we don't go to Paradiso yet. We go through Purgatorio. Is next, and then Paradiso. Um, those three large divisions known as the cantiche, and so each of those contains 33 cantos, songs. So 33 songs altogether are like the chapter divisions, the book divisions. Um, Although the first one, the Inferno, seems to have 34. But actually, the first one is kind of an introduction where we're not really in hell yet. We haven't really gone into the hellmouth yet. So we begin in the world and then go through the other realms. So what that leaves us with structurally is each one evenly divided into 33 cantos. Um, 33 each, so that's very, but then there's this extra one. And so we end up with an even 100 cantos. Okay, so before we get to the first canto, just a little bit of introduction about Dante. Okay, so you're going to have to deal with the talking head, I'm afraid, talking head. But if you get bored with the talking head instead of the full torso apparition that you see in classroom, um, then just look at the books. And you just pick one off the shelf, and there's got to be something for every taste up there. Um, so we'll be talking throughout about how Dante fits into the bailiwick of this class, the epic and the self. Well, the self, I don't think Dante has too much trouble with. Excuse me, I need more caffeine. Much better. Okay. Um, so we'll talk about that, but we'll also talk about all of the how it fits into the um, what's gone before in general in this class. First of all, an epic. Well, in the broadest sense of epic as a lengthy narrative poem, it certainly fits that. Um, what about some of the other elements that we talked about? Heroes. Well, there's something heroic about the narrator, and that's where actually it partakes of the work we just finished that also was questionable about how it fits into a course on the epic. Uh, the confessions, the confessions, getting us used to the narrative mode of first person, telling one's own most intimate story. Um, Again, Augustine didn't. It wasn't exactly the very first to have a autobiography, but the first really to popularize the genre and really get Western readers used to the genre, so that because of Augustine, we can have the intimate journey of Dante in the Divine Comedy. Okay, so we'll get to some of those questions, but first, what kind of world was Dante writing about? We left off in North Africa and Rome and Milan of the 5th century with Augustine. Where are we going to in Dante? In Dante, we jump 8 centuries. We're in the 13th century in Florence, Firenze. Um, and what was Florence like in the 13th century? It was a city of about 100,000 people. which was a pretty good sized city for the 13th century. It may not sound like much today. Um, so a fairly large city, but a walled medieval city. So that makes it more cramped. That makes it much more. It makes it seem smaller. And so, with 100,000 people inside walls, you really everybody knows everybody. It is a small world, and so a lot of the Divine Comedy is going to seem like local small town gossip. Dante's neighbors are going to be showing up, so we'll take a look at that when we get into the to the narrative. Okay. Um, what what kind of a city was Florence? We know what size it was. Well, it was a city of growing wealth and growing political importance in that region of Italy known as Tuscany. Um, Firenze was vying with Siena at the time to be top dog in the Tuscan region, and pretty successfully. But part of that intrigue in being number one involved some squabbling inside the city. About a century before Dante, uh, the um, the German uh, aristocracy that had been trying to get control of southern Italy, they had divided into two factions, two parties, the Welfs und die Weblingons. So these, of course, very German-sounding names were Italianized to the two parties known as the Guelphs and the Ghibellines. Dante sided with the Guelphs, and in 1260, which was about 5 years before Dante was born, uh, the Battle of Campaldino. No, I'm sorry, that didn't come yet. The Battle of Monteperte came first in 1260, before Dante's birth, and that put the enemy of Dante's family, the Ghibellines, in power for almost 30 years. Then in 1289, this was the Battle of Campaldino, and that was the battle that made Dante's party, the Guelphs, um, successful. They wiped out the Guelphs, but that's not still not going to stop factionalism, because what happens when you have one party, the one party breaks into to factions, and so that's exactly what happens with Dante's Guelphs. There's a break between the Black Guelphs, which generally were middle class, that is artisans and merchants, and the White Guelphs were the minor nobility, which was Dante and his family. Um, and so that's the factionalism that we see in Dante's time. Now, um, in the beginning of the 14th century, in 1302, Dante's party was on the outs because there was the Pope Boniface the eighth was convinced by the other faction that Dante's party, the White Ghibellines, were the White Guelphs were secretly Ghibellines. It wasn't true, but the Pope believed it, and so the Whites were exiled uh, from Firenze in 1302. What that means is, so Dante is like in his 30s then. What that means is that Dante reaches the middle of his life as an exile. Okay, and so the experience of exile is going to be a very important part of Dante's experience. Okay, so that's a pretty that's as brief as we're going to get, because we don't have a lot of time. But that sets us up for the opening of the Divine Comedy, and that's what we'll look at in our next exciting episode. Okay, so I'll see you then, and well, actually, it's right away. So go to part two, and we'll open with the first canto of the Divine Comedy. Okay, bless you. We'll see you on the other side.